Okay, welcome to chapter 4. This is part 2 of chapter 4. Okay, so this is the part on the communication layer of chapter 4. Okay, IoT security. Now, where were we? We were earlier on talking about 4.1. We are talking about the access control. If you think in terms of TCP/IP, let's take a look at TCP/IP. Let's do a drawing over here. When we look into TCP/IP, TCP/IP is basically 4 layers, right? Your access control. That was your previously what we went through, all your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, those are the security level that we talked about earlier on. So today we're going to go into the IP layer and the TCP layer of the security portion of basically in terms of IoT wise. Okay, so this is the part that we were going to go through today. Okay, so let's start now. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, for TCP/IP vulnerability in IoT networks. So what we have actually, right? Again, we come back to the same thing, right? First of all, you have your IoT gateway. That's a key part, right? Internet of Things, right? Internet of Things. So the key thing again is the main part is the internet part also, the network part, which is the internet part. So you have a gateway, right? You have your so-called router or whatever, right? Earlier on, we are talking about all the lower layer part, okay, that actually go through. Now we are talking about the IP part. So what we have as an attack surface, we have a sensor network. End of the day, where's a sensor network? Let's check, change the color, right? So all these are your sensor networks, right? Collect all the information. You have your IoT gateway, okay? And then you have a router or something like that connects eventually to the internet itself, right? Because eventually it's basically internet uplink. So these are some of the attack surfaces area that may subject for internet connections. All these connections come with TCP/IP. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Next. So, what are some of the common ones? Some of the common ones, such as the DDoS attack. Okay, denial of service attack. That's very common because people will be able to just jam out your traffic, send lots of packet and jam out traffic. Of course, there can be distributed denial of service attack. You have many system coordinated from many sources, right? There's multiple sources machine. I can go through ICMP. Okay, ICMP is a kind of management protocol from for IP layer, what we call management protocol. Okay, again, even though here says internet control, so basically it doesn't deal with the IP layer control. It's basically your management portion, right? Do remember you have control plane, okay, your data plane, okay, and management plane. Okay, management plane. Okay, your ICMP and IGMP basically is management. Okay, of course your IP is here lah, your normal IP is here lah. And control plane, there are some other protocol, the routed protocol, which is the control plane itself. Okay, so ICMP basically things that you use it for management to be able to discover whether the network is connected, not connected, and so on and so forth. So the ICMP attack. Okay, and then some other address spoofing attack. Those are deals with your control plane, which is your ARP. Okay, address resolution protocol. Okay, that is your control plane already, right? So basically deals with your MAC address versus your IP address. Okay, those are actually your control plane attack. Next thing is man in the middle attack. Okay, basically you have certain things in the middle, obviously, because your IP, you have a certain hop, you may have some machine in between already. So you're subjected to man-in-the-middle attack. Last but not least, if you go a little bit higher, because we are talking about common connections, so you have a session, you connect a session, so you have a session hijacking. Someone can hijack into the network itself. So these are some of the common IP internet protocol vulnerability that we have. Okay, this is just a quick surface. Let's go into the detail itself. Let's move into detail itself. Okay, DDoS can be several kinds of DDoS, right? In terms of connections. The first kind is the malicious formatted packet. Okay, malicious formatted packet. Basically, the packet itself originally doesn't look like that. Okay, typically a packet is at IP layer we call a packet just to do some revision At lower layer is known as a frame. Once you hit network layer, it's known as a packet. Okay, so at a packet, the packet itself, the content is supposed to have a header. You supposed to have some payload itself, right? So the header itself, people can make some changes to the header and cause it to crash the machine if your endpoint is not programmed properly. End of the day, right? A lot of time is due with the programming part of it. You cannot guarantee, especially in early days, of course, your BSD socket, okay, what we call Berkeley socket, in the 1970s, right? Throughout the years, people update changes to the IP protocol, okay, basically all these things written in C language, because the very first programming language comes from there, okay? And BSD, the key part of BSD and C, BSD is the very first kind of things. So in early days, the key part that actually caused the DDoS attack is actually a thing called a worm. Okay, it's a malicious program. Okay, of course there's some other thing There's also virus and Trojan. Okay, virus and Trojan. Okay, the key part that actually caused most of the DDoS is basically a worm. What does a worm do? A worm do, because in C programming, C was designed because of the easiness of doing this. The part of that actually caused this is called a fork. Okay, it is an API. Today we call it an API. Those days we call it as a processor. So end of the day, it is an API that people call and to spin off a new process, forking, and that is one of the cause of generating a lot of additional packet, not even normal packet, generating a lot of that actually, because you just regenerate the same thing, that becomes a maliciously formatted packet. Really just duplicate the same thing, but you duplicate a lot of times. That's what fork is doing. Fork means to duplication. Okay, that itself is a malicious formatted packet. Each of the packet by right is supposed to have one. If there is a retransmission, then you generate a second one. Okay, this thing don't care whether you have a retransmission, no retransmission, just generate a few more. So that become a replay attack, what we call a replay attack. Okay, the code itself. So subjected to a replay attack, basically generate a exact same packet, then you send over. Of course, next thing is they generate too big a file, right? Instead of 65535, that's the maximum size of what the IP packet can do. Octet Okay, octet is bytes, 8 bits per octet. Okay, 8 bit per octet. Okay, only for storage then we use byte. For network we always use a thing called octet. Okay, so 8 bit. So once you bigger than that and your program can't handle this, that is also a form of malicious formatted packet. Okay, because the program, the way it's been written, right, I will not know where they get from this TCP/IP programming method. End of the day, the way to code it, right? There are some way that some programmer did not program properly, did not handle memory properly, and the whole thing crash. So that's what of the malicious packet of DDoS actually came about. Okay, now next, overwhelming of traffic. Okay, overwhelming of traffic. Too many things are jamming in. Too many traffic are sending into the connection itself. Okay, because of that, then there is a jamming. So very simple. Instead of just sending one, right? As I mentioned, it's just fork. Okay, fork is just doing one. Okay, it may fork one, it may fork 5. What happened? You have fork 100 or fork 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 all within the same second, all send at the same time. Okay, it's just like road. If you have 1 or 2 car on the same with different lane, fine, you don't have traffic jam. But you suddenly put 100 car or 1,000 car or 10,000 car on the same 2-lane road. Let's say it's 2-lane road, definitely will jam. Or even 1-lane road, it definitely will jam. Okay, so that's what we call overwhelming of quantity of traffic. Okay, you just duplicate very quickly, and that causes the jamming. Okay, so that is DDoS. And then there's distributed DDoS. Let's take a look at what is distributed DDoS next. Okay, so this is distributed DDoS. So you have many zombie, right? This is a hybrid of worm plus virus. So virus duplicate. Okay, then it causes the machine, cause all these machines to become a worker for the hacker. Okay, so all these things is infected, and suddenly at a particular point, let's say Christmas 25th of December, okay, all this been activated and all send the traffic into the victim infrastructure and bring down the system. Because if you want, there's so many packets you can generate. You can generate about 1,000 packets per second. Okay, that's if you talk about one process. Let's say you talk about 1,000 process, right? The machine you cannot no longer handle it's about that 1,000 process. Then it's very heavy really. Then you all do exactly the same thing. The whole thing will, no matter how good your router is. The right router is $3,000 and you buy a special machine because they use a thing called the TCAM, the separative memory that can handle a lot better than your normal PC. But it has an upper limit also. So no matter how good the RAM is, you reach a certain point, it can no longer handle the whole infrastructure will bring down. Okay, so this is what distributed DDoS is. You can see, distributed denial of service is. Okay, so that's distributed. So you have a lot of machine all whack at the same time. Okay, so this is one type. Let's take a look at, is there some other type? Later, yes. Okay, so you can do amplification, right? Amplification is, instead of a lot have been affected, you have one, and then you send this traffic to many machines because of how ICMP is being designed. Okay, because of how ICMP is being designed, it bars a reflection. So you have an echo request and an echo response. You say, I am this victim. Okay, the cybercrime. Okay, instead of sending its own address, it says, I send a victim address. Okay, as if that as if I'm the one who sent out. So you send all this traffic out, and then it reflect back all the way to the victim, and then cause the victim to crash. Okay, so that's called amplification and reflection. Okay, you send over, amplify, and reflect it back. Okay, so this is how one of the possibility to do it. This is known as a Smurf attack. Okay, next. Next part is ICMP. Just now we talked about ICMP. We come back to ICMP, right? ICMP is what? Management protocol. Okay, so ICMP typical is echo request and echo response, right? Your typical ping right? Ping is a type of ICMP packet. So it's the actual thing is called echo request and echo response. Normally what called ping. Okay, there's a specific type inside. This is type 8. Okay, normally there's a way to program this, what we call socket, raw socket, and then you just put in type 8. Okay, then you can do this. Then you can specify the tile size. Actually, in actual fact, you don't really need to write the program. This is one of the way you actually can use some of the program to generate this thing also. Okay, it's quite easy to do this now because there's a lot of software. Those software earlier on was meant for debugging purposes and some other things, but then it can use for bad purposes. So they may send in a spoof packet and get a response. Okay, spoof, all these spoof packet. Why are we doing all these things? The response, the key part is the response. We want to get hold of the victim's operating system. Okay, two part I cut two end. Why? Example, if you talk about a Windows machine, you know that the reply will always be 32 bytes. Okay, or 232 octet long. Okay, 32 octet long in terms of the response. If it's a Linux machine, it's 56. Okay, octet. So each response, and it responds 3 times rather than respond 4 times. So the operating system itself, that will give away what kind of operating system the victim is. So through that allows the attacker to figure out what kind of operating system or what kind of application there is. So that's what we call reconnaissance attack, end of the day, to find out what machine that is the other side. Why? So that we can know what kind of vulnerability that machine is, and then thereafter use through the vulnerability and access to that machine. Okay, first of all, you need to find out. You're a scout, you need to find out, like a commando, you want to find out exactly what the other side is, and then before you actually launch the actual attack. This is what we call ICMP attack, one of them. Okay. Next. So address spoofing attack, this is known as the part that goes into the control frame. So we have ARP, address resolution protocol. Okay, poisoning, called address poisoning. Because at the end of the day, in order for a machine to connect to the network itself, to connect to a switch, this is a switch now. The switch itself, right? You make use of this ARP protocol. Remember when you need to do ping, right? If you remember that we are trying to do all our packet tracer, when we are trying to do all the ping, we will actually make use of this ARP portion first, so that every time the first packet doesn't go through nicely. It basically for the switch to know, that is the MAC address tied to that physical address, then you can go through, right? But then that becomes also a weakness. You see, that is a control. You see, that goes through the network and connections, right? But then an attacker can spoof the MAC address and pretend that I am the actual one, and instead of sending to the correct machine, it send the traffic to the attacker. Okay, so that is known as a spoofing attack, right? You fake someone else's MAC address and tell the switch, hey, I am that machine. So instead of directly sending that message to the correct machine, the correct IP address, you attacker also receive the message. Okay, this is first half of it, because by being able to spoof, because you'll be able to read, you read this thing and then you forward to the real thing. You yourself become man in the middle, right? Because first of all, how you inject yourself into the middle of the traffic, because you are trying to let the switch to send the traffic to you instead of directly to the end user, the victim. Okay, so that is what this spoofing is about. Okay, so send this thing so that the person that are trying to send the information to you didn't know that. So you intercept the traffic, okay, through the switch itself. Okay, that's one of the things. With that, it is possible to become a man in the middle. So you actually you spoof already, right? So all the traffic goes to you instead of going to the victim. So it goes to you first. So you are the attacker. So then you redirect the traffic. You modify the data before you send to the victim. Okay, then you become man in the middle. Okay, so that's how man in the middle actually works. Okay, out of the spoofing portion. Okay, good. Let's move on. Okay, so we cover basically an IP layer attack. Next, we will move into the TCP vulnerability. Okay, TCP typically is in terms of reliable connectivity. There are applications running on top. Typical application such as your web application, your instant messaging application, your email application. So each of them run a specific port number. Okay, they are well-known port. All these are well-known port. Things that is from port 1 to port 1024. They are tied to a very, very specific application. Okay, it is done in that way because end of the day we want to be able to reliability, make sure that all the application is doing the correct way. Lo and behold, all these things is done more than 30-40 years ago, right? Those days are actually about network reliability then. Okay, lo and behold, a hacker make use of these and try to use these to actually fake the connectivity. So let's take a look at exactly where TCP/IP goes wrong from here. So the key part is, one thing is you can use it to scan the application because of the port number. So port 80 we know is for web. So you can scan the port, right? Another one is telnet. Early days we use FTP. Username and password is in clear text. You have done the packet tracer. You know that it is not secure. You know telnet is port 23. Right? This is 21. This is 23. All these are not secure, including HTTP port 80. Right? These are something that we did in the lab already. So all these are not secure. So all these are vulnerability at the TCP layer. It can be discovered. If you remember, we run one of the lab and show that at the application, if the application was not done properly, that particular version has some problem that's worse. Right? First of all these are not secure port. You can straight away see the username password. So if you discover there is such a port, that becomes a vulnerability immediately. Okay, that becomes a security vulnerability immediately, right? Okay, so try not to run all these services anymore, but it's still there, no choice. Life is like that. Okay, next. Okay, beside the port itself, we also can do DDoS at TCP. How to do DDoS? Because each of the TCP actually make use of a thing called a three-way handshake for connections. What do we mean by three-way handshake? The first packet that you send out, right? This is a client, this is a server, right? The first packet you send come with a flag called the synchronize. Okay, make sure they connect before you actually send the data, right? That's what TCP does. So the first packet is synchronized, the second packet is synchronized plus acknowledgement. Okay, these things come from the server back to the client. And last but not least, the client send an acknowledgement. So this attack actually generally focus on the sync packet, the first one. Okay, so it sends a lot of sync packet, a lot of these. Okay, you can see 3 on the web server. And the web server thinks that I have 4 connections trying to connect to me, so it will respond to the 4 connections. Okay, 4 is fine, but then how much can a web server handle? Typically, Apache can handle up to about 30,000 connections if you have sufficient enough RAM. Okay, but if you talk about embedded device, probably can go up to about 10,000 connection at most. You're talking about a pretty powerful embedded system such as Raspberry Pi. If you talk about a microcontroller worse, you probably have about 5,000 connections altogether. So what does an attacker do? I send 6,000 sync connection all the way down, right? What happened? It's just a traffic I cannot handle because you only can handle about 5,000, or even worse, you have even less RAM, right? So it depends on how much RAM you have inside your device, right? You only have a few megabytes, or good luck to you, okay? But that is what actually how things can do through connectivity brings down a machine. Because end of the day, port 80 are very common, and most of the machine port 80 are open. Most of the IoT equipment port 80 is open because we want to do connectivity, right? So as much as possible for new design IoT, probably you want to avoid port 80 altogether totally really. You want to go for port 443. But even that, you are still subjected for denial of service attack, because that doesn't care, because these are TCP control protocol. Control protocol are highly subjected for DDoS attack. Okay? Control protocol are always subjected to a lot of DDoS attack, denial of service attack. Okay, so that's one of the example of TCP control protocol being attacked through DDoS. Next, so we cover TCP. We're going to move to UDP. So what does UDP actually have? UDP is send and forget. Okay, It does not come with encryption. Okay, most of the time it is possible to have encryption, but doesn't come with it by default. On the other side, okay, a lot of time we make use of voice over IP, and then a lot of time the firewall don't block because a lot of time we only have the main part that firewall block, because the firewall block your FTP, which is a TCP protocol, your HTTP, which is a TCP protocol, Telnet is a TCP protocol. The rest of this thing, the firewall a lot of time do not do any blockage, because some of these things helps in terms of, for example, the DNS, right? Help in terms of your network connectivity is part of your application level control, right? It's a control plane protocol. So a lot of time your firewall don't do this kind of level of blockage. Okay, but it becomes on the other side, it becomes a vulnerability end of the day, right? You can't block all, you block everything, nothing works. Okay, so you have to subjectively block certain things and discover whether someone trying to hack you or not, right? If someone trying to hack you, then you turn on the firewall. Once it's finished, you return back to normal. Okay, because without those, a lot of things doesn't work. Okay, so that's how DDoS actually comes in, because all these control protocol is highly subjected to all kinds of DDoS. UTP especially, just do a DDoS, that's it, just send a lot of traffic at the same time, because there's not even acknowledgement or whatever, right? So all these are the common UTP attack because of UTP flooding end of the day. Again, right? Mainly for UTP, basically it's just no connectivity. So basically, again, flooding. Okay, just like ICMP. Okay, so all these are the attack at all the various layers. So, what are some of the best practices in terms of securing IoT communication protocol? The very important thing is it need to be physically secured and protected from damages, destruction, the physical device. The firmware must not be tampered with. Okay, should be protected so that it will not be subjected to vulnerability. Some connector there, some connection here, because eventually, there's some of the things. The threat modeling will involve identify all the various components inside there, right? Like each of these petal of the fire, of the flower, right? The communication must be secured, right? Especially the TCP/IP part, right? How be able to monitor that is not so trivial, not so easy, right? Because as I mentioned, the denial of service attack can subject to IP, can subject to TCP, can subject to UTP, and especially if you have UTP and you have DNS, you have to just to monitor. You can't just block it just like that. It's the same way as ICMP. So it is more about monitoring, turn off, block it. When the thing is gone, the threat is gone, then turn it back on so that life go back as usual. So it's a cat and mouse game. It's always a cat and mouse game end of the day. Okay. Then as much as possible, use cryptographic. Okay, UTP, just now we did not mention. UTP is possible to do also TLS, okay, which is a secure connection. Encryption, including encryption for the authentication. TLS is also known as data in transit. Okay, I hope you remember that. Okay, when you have a hard disk, it's data at rest, not moving. Data in transit, data that is moving. Okay, so it allows you to do encryption protection. That's what TLS. Okay, that actually we are talking about earlier on, right? So these are some of the important things to look into in terms of connectivity wise for protection. Beyond that, you also need to think in terms of the firewall, how you're going to place the firewall. So isolation of network is important, okay, but not a single direction. Okay, why? Because if you do a unidirection connectivity only, you have a problem in terms of patching. Okay, there are a lot of people who keep on talking about unidirectional connectivity, but that brings a lot of harm for patching. That totally ignore the patching regime. Okay, patching is important. You should not say no to patching. Okay, a lot of, end of the day, the context is a lot of network company, they need survival. You cannot throw them out of the picture. You throw them out of the picture, it becomes worse. And a lot of device is all these vendors, end of the day. They are your bottom line, end of the day. So you cannot avoid patches. Okay, you cannot do security for the sake of security, end of the day. So end of the day, it's a holistic picture, end of the day, you need to think. So when you want to implement it, at most you only can implement a firewall. It must be a smart, okay, blockage based on condition. Okay, it need to be, again, repeat, it need to be a smart blockage based on the condition. Okay, and you need to build what are the trust layer, what are the trust zone. So everything within here is trusted within itself. Here is a demilitarization subjected for sacrifice, and then you have some other portion, let's say manufacturing, another layer of trust by themselves. Each of them in between, you're using firewall. It needs to be a smart, monitored, on the fly. You can change what is needed. If you have device change from point A to point B, and you are always need to having certain thing plug in and plug out. So you need to be able to, you no longer go into just pure human configuration. It need to be a software defined defense, okay, or security. Because you have to use script on your firewall on the fly. You have 100 machines, 100 machines, you plug in, plug out, plug in, plug out. Based on the profile, you need to have security profile for each and every devices and apply them on the fly. Okay, all these things was never mentioned in many places because people don't understand. They will just use a brute force way of doing security. That is not a good solution, not a smart solution, because by doing that, you will subject for some other kind of security vulnerability. You do a certain way, you hardwire a certain way, some other way will bring it in to bring down the whole entire thing. The whole point is just to bring you to a fixed layer and corner you at that level. Haha, you are cornered at that level. I will find the other way to whack you. That's how a hacker will do. That's how warfare, how people think about warfare. You corner you to a certain things that you cannot move anymore. Haha, that's how I can find a second attack and then attack you. Okay, so there are many strategies to do that. So you need to have a flexibility. You can turn it off at a certain point and you can turn it back on. Turn off, turn on at the same time. Okay, so you want to make to a point that at the end of the day, it's very difficult for the attacker to actually corner you to a certain level. That's one of the firewall is one of the possible way to allow you to provide flexibility. But then firewall should not be a hard code. It need to be a smart firewall. Okay, end of the day, you need to do software defined. Okay, in terms of blockage wise. Okay, at the TCP/IP level. Okay. So if there are totally no isolation, then you have subject yourself to a lot of attack. Their credit card information, their cooling system being attacked, all kinds of systems gonna be attacked through that way. Okay, and these are some of the threat model from OWASP. Okay, lack of transportation and so on and so forth. Okay, and that's it. So in the lower layer, if you take a look at the 15.4, okay, some of the encryption not done, obviously subjected to problem. Integrity for key management is a problem. ACL, access control list, is it being maintained? Right? Is there a latest version you have been using? TCP/IP, there's no such thing as the latest version, but the latest software are you using? Right? Is the software, is it properly programmed, coded? Do not sacrifice the programming code okay, because of efficiency, you need to take both into consideration. What kind of CPU is involved and what kind of network protocol is involved. How many core inside the CPU is needed in order to run that thing reliably and securely, end of the day, right? Need to make sure that the data flow is protected properly, accurate, they are within the trust zone, the firewall is there, or the access control list is there to segregate the traffic, and you need to have proper encryption. Okay, so these are some of the communication checklists. And that's it for today's lesson. Thank you very much. Hope you subscribe, and then we see you in the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.